There we go. Okay, so now we've looked at working with polynomials today, adding, subtracting, multiplying, not really dividing, but multiplying. Today, or lastly, I guess I should say, we're going to do factoring polynomials. And so if you had a look at the note, what you would notice is that factoring polynomials is the opposite of multiplying. And so we, this morning, ended up with something that looks like this, but yet it, because it's been simplified from having two things multiplied by each other. All right, and in this case, what we're going to have is we are going to end up, when we factor, reversing it, and so then we end up with two things multiplying each other. Now, here's the thing. These are all quadratic equations, because as I mentioned, we are getting into the quadratic unit, next unit. And so we got to be able to factor. Now, some teachers teach us differently. I teach it a certain way so that you will always be able to do one way for everything. I believe a lot of teachers teach decomposition. I do not do that, where you need to find two numbers that multiply and add. I do a little bit differently. And so I do what's called the chart method. Well, it's not called that. I call it that. So here's how it works. I put the first term in the top left-hand corner. So again, some of you may have seen this before, some of you not. I put the negative 15, the last term, in the top right-hand corner. Now, there's two spots here and there's two spots here. Excuse me. And what you need to do is come up with two things that multiply, say in this case, x squared. Now, x squared is always going to be x and x, because x times x will give you x squared. Now, I do have to come up with two numbers that give me negative 15. But when I'm going to do a crisscross, and it has to add up to 2x. So I'm going to say two numbers that add up to negative 15 are 3 and negative 5. Now, that might not necessarily be the answers. Here's how I check it. I cross multiply, and I add those two terms. So I'm going to get a minus 5x plus 3x. That's not 2x. That's actually negative 2x. But if I switch the signs, make this 5 positive, make this 3 negative. Now I have 5 x's, subtract 3 x's. That gives me 2 x's. And so now I have my two factors. I just have to go read them left to right horizontally. And so I have x minus 3. There is one factor. The other factor is an x across plus 5. And there we go. There it is factored. All right, so I'm going to try a couple more of those, and then we'll get into more complicated ones where you got to kind of work both sides. So again, when I factor x squared minus 4x minus 60, it's going to be in two parts. All right, two factors. Again, I'm going to do a table. First term goes in the top left, so there's my x squared. My last term goes in the top right. It's a minus 60. All right, so again, right now, because these are the easy ones, when you have an x squared, it's always x and x. There we go. Now I got to come up with two numbers that multiply to give me negative 60. And then when I do my crisscrossing, I got to get negative 4. How about negative 12 and 5? They do multiply to give me negative 60. But when I crisscross, I get negative 12x plus 5x. That's minus 7x. It's close, not good enough. All right, so those aren't the numbers. Let's try, how about 4 and 15? Oh, I got to make one of them negative. Let's see here. 15, negative 15x plus 4x's? No, that's even worse. That's minus 11x. So those don't work. Let's try 10 and 6. Oh, I got to make one of them negative. Let's make the big one negative. So now I have negative 10x plus 6x's. That is minus 4x. There's our factors. And so one of them is going to be an x minus 10. And the other one, well, we got a positive 6 here, so it's going to be x plus 6. And there we go. All right, so sometimes you don't get it the first time around. You got to be good with multiplication of numbers. All right, the next one here, we have x squared minus 14x plus 24. Again, it's going to look like two factors. All right, and again, I'm going to make my chart. So I have x squared It's my first term. My last term over there is 24, so it's going to the top right. Again, because we have an x squared, I have an x and an x. Two numbers that give me 24, but then add up to negative 14. Okay, that's weird. How about negative 6 and negative 4? Let's see, minus 4x's plus minus 6x's. That's minus 10x. Close, not good enough. Those aren't going to work. How about negative 12 and negative 2? Let's see here. Minus 2x, minus 12x's. That gives us the minus 14x. Those are my right numbers. So I have an x minus 12 and an x minus 2. And there we go. All right, so again, you've got to be good with multiplication. Now, we'll get into some of the tougher ones. And here's what I mean by the tougher ones. Let's see here. So, now those ones always had a first term of x squared. The tougher ones do not. Their first term has an x squared in it, but there's a number in front that is not a 1. All right, so for example 2, I want to factor 2x squared. So there's the not x squared in front, plus 7x plus 6. All right, so again, even though this one's a little bit different, because what makes this different is there's not a 1 in front of the x squared. All right, but when I factor it, I'm going to get 2 pieces. And again, the reason I show you the chart method is because I'm going to use it for all of them. All right, so I draw the chart. First term goes in the top left, 2x squared. Last term goes in the top right. There we go. So same method, but here's the problem. Here's why this one's twice as hard. Actually, literally is twice as hard, because I do have to work with this side now. I can't just put x and x like I did before and only figure the right side. I got to work both the left and the right side. And so 2x squared, I'm going to go with a 2x and an x. All right, and again, trial and error here. I'm going to go with a 2 and a 3. That multiply give me 6. And let's see here. 2x times 3 is 6x plus 2 more x's. 8x. Oh, close. Really close, but not the 1. All right. And sometimes you got to work with both sides. And sometimes you can just work with one side. But what do I have? 2 and a 3. I'm going to go 3 and a 2. Reverse the order. 2x times 2 is 4x plus 3 x's. Gives me 7 x's. All right, I got it on the second try. So again, here's my factors. Go across 2x plus 3. And then an x plus 2. And there we go. It's been factored. All right, let's try B. Where I have, let's see here, 6x squared plus 13x minus 5. All right, so again, when I'm factoring this, 2 pieces. There we go. Chart. All right, so I have a 6x squared and a minus 5. All right, so my first and my last term. Lots of 6x squareds. I don't know. And again, the best part is I'm not looking at my answers, so I'm just going through this in real time. I'd go with a 2x and a 3x. Those work. Now, I got lucky here on the negative 5 because there's only 2 numbers that give me negative 5. A negative 5 and a 1, or a negative 1 and a 5. So we'll see what happens there. All right, so what am I aiming for? 13x. 2 x's minus 15x. That's minus 13x. That's pretty good. Right number, wrong sign. Here's how you always deal with that. We had this before. I'm going to change this 5 to a positive, and let's go with 1 as the negative. So now I have 15 x's, so 5 times 3x is 15 x's, minus 2 x's. That does give me the 13x. All right, so now I know I've got 2x plus 5 is one of the factors. And then the other one is 3x minus 2, or 3x minus 1, sorry. And there we go. I got lucky on that one. All right, C. Now here's a little bit of a different scenario with C. Let's see here. I got 2x squared plus 10x plus 12. All right, so again, going to be in two pieces. All right, I do a table. So again, my first term is 2x squared, and my last term is 12. The 2x squared isn't that bad because I had that before. The only thing I can multiply is 2x and an x. Now the 12's got a lot of factors. All right, so I'm trying to get to a 10x here. I'm just going to throw it out there and go 6 and a 2. See how we work out here. Let's see here. 2x times 2 is 4x plus 6x. I actually got it first time out. That's all right. Not bad for a morning. All right, so my factor is 2x plus 6. And I got an x plus 2. Now, here's why I said this one's a little different. There was actually two answers. That happens very rarely, but it does happen. And so one of the answers, I could have went, how's this? X and 2x, 4, and I believe a 3, I think work. Let's see. 4 x's plus 6 x's. That also gives me 10x. So there's actually two answers. This is one, or here's another answer. There we go. So it works. There's two of them. So again, that can happen. So if you get something different than the book or different than somebody else, that's what could be the case. All right. Now, here's the key is, again, we're doing quadratic equations next unit. It doesn't matter which one you come up with because when we solve, no matter which one you use, you're going to get the right same answer. All right. Now, our last type. So there's some easy ones with the x squared in front. These are the harder ones because there's not an x squared or not a 1 in front of the x squared. And now we look at the different ones. The difference of squares. So again, hopefully this is a little bit of review, but again, I don't look at it that way. All right, so the difference of squares are in this form where you could have a number in front of the x squared. All right, so if you did have a number in front of the x squared, it would be squared. All right, and difference, so we have subtraction, and then we have some other number here or some other term, which is also squared. All right, now when we have something in this form, a difference of squares, again, you're going to get two pieces. All right, and again, the difference here is there's only two terms, where the last two types we did where there was three terms. All right, now what you do is you square, well, first off, there's going to be a plus sign in one of these and a minus sign in the other, or vice versa, it doesn't matter. All right, now you square root the first term. So if I square root a and I square root, if I square root a squared and I square root x squared, I would get ax. And so because that's the first term, it's going to go in the first spot. Then I square root the second term. So if I square root b squared, I get b. It's the second term, goes in the second spot. All right, now, first example of this, we have x squared minus 36. All right, so again, this term has been squared and this term has been squared. So you got to know your squares. But again, when we factor it, just like the other ones, you're going to get two pieces. All right, but because there's two terms, they're separated by a minus sign and they're both squared, I'm going to get a plus sign in one of these. I'm going to minus sign the other. I'll go minus the first time here and plus, doesn't matter which. All right, now, what we're looking at here is I square the first term. Now, there's no number in front. That's okay, but I still just square root the first term. If I square root x squared, I get x. Because it's the first term, it's going to go in the first spots. So I have an x and an x. The second term, again, I'm ignoring the minus sign as part of the form, is 36. And if I square root 36, I get 6. But because it's the second term, 6 is going to go in the second spot. Right here and right here. And so it factored as x minus 6 times x plus 6. All right, now b, something a little bit harder, so I'll throw a number in front. So we got 9x squared minus 4. There we go. So again, this term has been squared, and this term has been squared. So when I factor it, I get two pieces. All right, I got to have a plus and a minus sign. So I don't know, let's go plus here, minus here. All right, so again, because of the format, I square root the first term. 9, so 9x squared, I get a square root the 9, square root the x squared. I square root the 9, I get a 3. I square root the x squared, well, I get an x. So I'm going to have a 3x. First term, first spot. And that's in both of them. And then lastly, I square root the second term, which is 4. Square root it, it's 2 because the second term is going to the second spot. So a 2 is here, and a 2 is here. And so my factors would be 3x plus 2 times 3x minus 2. And there we go. So there's a little review of factoring. We got our difference of squares. We had our easy quadratics where there was a 1 in front of the x squared. And then we had our harder ones where you have to kind of work both charts where there's not a 1 in front of the x squared. That's the difference there. But either way, I use the chart method. And in fact, I could, it's a little more confusing. I could use the chart method here in either of these. For instance, I have my x squared. My minus 36 is my last term because actually the middle term, the x term, is 0. That's what kind of makes it a little confusing. But the chart method would work. Again, x squared, we have an x and an x. What are two things that multiply to give me negative 36? Well, I could say 6 and minus 6. And again, if you do the crisscross, minus 6x plus 6x, we get nothing in the middle. So the chart method even works for difference of squares. Again, a little more complicated. All right, so that's a little review of factoring, which again, we're going to need particularly in our next unit. But again, today was all about working with polynomials. Just going to... Now,